state of Louisiana is banning biological males from competing in female sports from kindergarten through 12th grade, as well as at the collegiate level. SB 44 passed into law yesterday without Governor John Bel Edwards' signature. The governor expressed his disagreement with the legislation, but commented that the bill's passage into law was inevitable based on the support in the State House. And joining us now is Matt Walsh, host of The Matt Walsh Show on the Daily Wire and host and producer of the new film, What is a Woman? Matt, thanks so much for coming on. We appreciate it. I want to get to your film, but first, I want to get your thoughts on Louisiana's new law and what you think it signals.
Well, it's another one of these laws that, look, we shouldn't need laws like this because this is basic common sense that biological males shouldn't compete against females. But in fact, we do need these laws, and we need them all across the country. And also, by the way, this is something I've been shouting from the rooftops to anyone who will listen, is that this is a winning issue for Republicans, for conservatives. And look, if you want to put Democrats in the position of having to defend the idea that biological males should compete against females, then let them defend it, because there is no defending it whatsoever. This is a common sense position, and one that if you talk to almost any normal person and they feel like they can speak freely about it without being, canceled or punished for giving their opinion, almost any normal person will agree that obviously there are differences between men and women, and you have to have those segregated for the purposes of sports.
Yeah, and speaking of that, I mean, in your film, you talked to some female athletes and got their perspective about, competing against transgender athletes. What did they have to say?
I thought what we heard from a teammate of Leah Thomas, who's the UPenn swimmer, male competing against females, and that I thought the conversation with the teammate was revealing. It was also kind of disturbing to hear from her, because we talk about like this idea of gaslighting, which we hear from the left all the time. They accuse people of gaslighting. Well, what happened to the women on that team was actual gaslighting, where they were told that, listen, you're going to have this man's going to be competing against you, and it's going to be in the locker room with you. And if you don't like it, then you can go to counseling and get therapy for it, because the problem is for you. You're the one with the problem if you simply are not comfortable having, a male body in the locker room with you. And the fact that women are being treated this way is just obviously horrendous.
Yeah, it's really kind of unbelievable. I know you spoke to a wide spectrum of people. You spoke to doctors who perform sex reassignment surgeries, to gender study professors, psychiatrists, and even just random people on the street. What did you learn from those conversations? What were some of the big takeaways?
The number one takeaway from the film in general, and certainly from my experiences filming it, is that this gender ideology is completely pervasive. It's ubiquitous. It's everywhere. It's taken over society. But also, it's just totally empty. I mean, it's vacuous. It's empty at its core. It's completely hollow. There's no defending it. And I gave its proponents plenty of opportunities to defend it, and they weren't able to. I mean, they literally no defense could they offer for this position. So instead, all they have is sort of evasion, and at certain points, even just getting up and walking out of the room because they realize that there's nothing that they can say in defense of it.
Yeah, and your film is, I watched it, it's entertaining, quite comical at times, but it really does deal with a really serious subject, in particular, the transgender movement and its impact on our children. You had a really powerful discussion with Scott Nugent, a biological woman who then transitioned to a male who now advocates against gender-affirming care for children. Tell us a little bit more about that conversation.
Yeah, that was, I think, the most powerful conversation, at least for me, in the film. And I think Scott Nugent is one of the heroes of the film. And it was refreshing in a way to talk to her, even though the story that she told was disturbing and horrifying and quite sad. Refreshing just in the sense that, well, here was someone who was actually willing to talk and was open and honest, willing to have the conversation. Whereas every person I talked to up to that point, all the so-called experts who are pushing this stuff, even though they push it, and this is their whole life, they didn't want to talk about it. All they did was evade. She was very honest about it, and she made clear that what we're doing, especially to kids, there's no real defense of it. This is sort of experimental. We're treating kids like lab rats, and we hear all these breezy reassurances about so-called puberty blockers or so-called gender reassignment surgery. All these assurances that, it's totally safe, there are no long-term consequences, and that is all, as Scott Nugent explained, is just a total lie.
Yeah, we were running out of time, but I want to get to this because another thing that really stuck out to me was your conversation with the dad in Canada. who wasn't on board with his daughter's decision to transition. Tell us what happened to him and about the laws in Canada that really do seem to be taking away parents' rights.
Yeah, the laws in Canada basically say that if your daughter says that she's a boy, that you are legally required to affirm that. And if you don't, then you're going to go to jail. And that's exactly what happened to this father. And these laws, and this is one thing you wanted to make clear to me in our conversation, is that, if we're living in the United States, don't get a false sense of security that, well, that's just the crazy people up in Canada that are doing that. These kind of laws are currently right now making their way into the United States. And it's only getting worse from there, which is another reason why we have to be aware of that and pushing back.
Yeah, and it took you a while. I don't want to give it away to anybody, but it took a while for you to get that answer, what is a woman? Did you think that going around the country and around the world that it would take you so long to get an answer to such a basic question?
I didn't really. I thought especially, talking to just random average people on the street, I honestly thought that we would get a straight answer from many more people than we did. I mean, I found that even just average people on the street, like 95% at least appeared to be or were presenting themselves as confused about this. And so it was, the reason we made the film in the first place is because I knew that this was a pervasive problem. But in filming it, I learned that it's even more so than I thought originally. Yeah,
and one thing really quickly I want to ask you, Matt, I know people were asking you this in the movie. Why do you care? Why do you care so much? So why do you care so much about this?
Well, the number one reason that I care, and I think we need to make this very clear, the number one reason that I care is that it's the truth, and I care about the truth. There is an inherent value to the truth itself, and that should actually be enough, right? I mean, that's all that should need to be said. But growing from that kind of foundation, there are other really important concerns, like the fact that women are having opportunities taken from them, they're having their privacy taken away from them, they're having their identities basically appropriated, and also children are being victimized by that. So those things are obviously extremely important, but it starts with, I think, the intrinsic inherent value of the truth.
Well, we're going to leave it right there. Matt, thank you so much for your time today and speaking with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.